Welcome to the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast with Forrest Kelly.
We head to the city that is known as Nation's Horse and Hunt Capital for its fox hunting, steeplechases, and large estates. Our 35th president, John F. Kennedy, built a 167-acre ranch just outside Middleburg, Virginia.
The Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast.
Hi, this is Melanie from Cana Vineyards and Winery in Middleburg, Virginia. The original owners named the winery after Cana of Galilee, where Jesus performed his first miracle and turned water into wine.
Okay, so your title position at the winery is what?
I am the winemaker and vineyard manager and wholesale department, inventory, whatever else might need to be done.
There's some different titles in there because usually they stop right after winemaker.
Yeah, no. Oh, I'm the entire cellar team too. So anybody that you might see working in a cellar, if you want to throw that title towards me, that would be appropriate as well. We're a pretty small production. I do about 2,500 to 3,000 cases a year. And I do have crew help in my vineyard, but in the cellar, it is just me.
So let's get a little background on you. Did you go to college?
I did. I have a master's in physical therapy.
Oh. Testing, is this on physical therapy?
Yes, that is my first career.
Okay, so you jumped into that, and then where did the transition happen from that to becoming where you are now?
Right, it's not a seamless transition. Come on now, it's so interesting around here in Virginia. We're getting to the point where you will see winemakers that this is their first career, but my group, my crew, most of us, you can say, oh, so what did you do first? And we all have our own stories. So yeah, I was a physical therapist for about 8 years. I traveled kind of around the country doing that, worked in lots of different settings. I really liked my job. I found wine and, I tasted it in some of the other areas I worked in the country. And then I started reading books and, I took a continuing education class and thinking this is just a hobby. This is something I do in my free time. And, it's pretty cool. I like it. I did buy like a textbook from the bookstore and just read it for fun. So I should have known something was up, but, and then I moved to Virginia in 2006. And I think that's where everything really kind of started coming together because I moved to wine country. I grew up in New Jersey. I didn't grow up with a family where there was wine on the table. So it's not anything I could have seen sooner. It couldn't have been a first career for me. It's just nothing I knew anything about until later. So I landed in Virginia. I was still a physical therapist. I started working in a tasting room on the weekends just to get a little closer. And the itch, it was just an interest, but it was something that was tugging so hard that I couldn't keep it to the side in my spare time anymore. So I knew I had to make a change. I was close to getting that degree in wine. So I looked at Fresno State out there on the West Coast by you, and I was about to go back to school. Mind you, I did just pay off my first 2 degrees about 2 years ago, so I would have been in debt still if I did that. I almost did. I met a winemaker around here in Loudoun County. His name is Doug Fabioli. And he said, okay, that's one path you could take. He's like, but you don't have to. I was like, oh, well, this other winemaker where I was working in the tasting room told me I had to. That was the only way to get there. I was like, oh, I think that's what I'm going to do. I was smart enough to sit down with him one day and say, all right, what do you mean I don't have to? He said, yeah, just start working in the cellar. So the great thing about that first career being physical therapy is that there was tons of work. I went per diem and I could get 3 or 4 days of work every week. It was always there for me. So I had a way to pay my bills, get by, working 3 or 4 days a week. And then 3 days a week, I could intern and apprentice and kind of learn from there.
When did you make actually the transition and go from doing per diem on the physical therapy, both feet are into the wine business?
Yeah, so it was September of 2009 that I started my half and half world, where I'd wake up every day and say, okay, who am I today? I did that for 2 years. And at first it was easy enough to do, but towards the end of it, man, it got tough. And if I'd wake up and be like, oh, it's a physical therapy day, I'd be pretty disappointed because I was ready to be in wine. So it was September, it was the harvest of 2011 that I went full time.
2 of our interview with Melanie, winemaker at Cana Vineyards in Middleburg, Virginia. Let's talk awards. Big awards.
The Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast.
Yeah, I have. The most exciting one was in 2022 when I won our Governor's Cup. So that is our competition for all Virginia grown fruit and made wine. And we're at a place in the state now where we've got about 300 wineries, and there's about 700 submissions to that competition. And it's been a lot of the same top wineries winning for a while. So I was a little bit of a disruption when I came onto the scene in 2022, but I love that. That's kind of how I operate. And yeah, that was the hugest honor. That was the biggest one.
Well, you missed the lead. You hid the lead story there, that you were the first woman to win the Virginia Cups competition in modern history.
Yeah, this is true. So that was a big deal, when we were talking and working on the promotion for everything. So we had the Virginia Wine Marketing Board, which is an office from the state here that really supports and promotes our industry. And we had a Zoom call to start talking about everything. And I asked them all, I'm like, who was the last woman that won? And we all looked at each other, and no one could call it. So that was pretty exciting. That was definitely a big one.
Well, you can give yourself a round of applause and say neener, neener. I also didn't mention that you are a woman-owned winery, that the winery is classified as woman-owned.
Correct. Lisa Petty is the current owner of Cana Vineyards.
So is that do you feel that when you come on the property, or it's just business as normal?
I don't know. I think some people know it, but I don't know if you feel it. I think the big thing you feel when you come on the property here, at least I hope, and is what we're going for, is we're really welcoming, accepting kind of place, right? You're not going to walk in and feel like I have to know a lot about wine and I have to dress up really nice and I have to do everything proper and do everything right and feel uncomfortable to be here. I personally, and thankfully it's on board with everybody's mission here, that I feel like wine should be accessible. Wine to me is food. It's our work on the farm to produce this product. It shouldn't be something elitist far away in the sky that's hard to understand. I mean, everyone can take what they want away from something they're drinking.
Just to rewind just a little bit. So Middleburg, Virginia, now, is it correct? Middleburg is less than 1,000 people live in the city? Or is it even a city?
Oh, it's not a city. Yeah. I don't know how many people live out here, but we're horse country, Virginia. So we've got big, beautiful horse farms and a cute little downtown.
In doing some research for this interview, I found that Virginia's weather has been described as Goldilocks climate. Never heard this term before, but it's not too hot and not too cold, and that Virginia is officially considered a humid subtropical region due to winter frost. So tell me about some of the obstacles that you have when it comes to weather.
So Virginia, and I would say probably most of the Mid-Atlantic, is a challenging place to grow grapes. I mean, there's a lot of us doing it, and I think we're making great wines, but we're working our tails off for it. We fight so much humidity, and that's our biggest beast out here, right? Because the disease pressure is often always high because of that. We deal with too much rain, the opposite of what you guys see out there on the West. We have a lot of rain, a lot of moisture that we deal with, and it's hot, especially here where we are. The heat is paired with that humidity, and even at night, it doesn't cool off sometimes. So you might get that beautiful diurnal shift. Out here in the East, it cooled down tonight. It's 80 degrees. And, that makes it a challenge, especially when you want to have enough acid coming in with your fruit. It's not an easy place to grow grapes, but it definitely works if you do.
In the property, I see where it's 43-acre farmland. When the customer comes in, are they coming right on it? Can you set that scene of what the property is to the viewer when they come in?
Absolutely. When you're coming to Cana, you'll be driving on Route 50, which is the biggest east-west road, around here by us. And you'll drive up the drive, depending on which direction you're coming from. And the vines go almost all the way down to the road. So you're going to see the vineyard immediately. You'll drive up the hill towards the winery. So the acreage that's planted under vine is about 7.5 acres. And it is all on a beautiful south-facing hill in front of the building.
So pulling up to the property and you get the beautiful Virginia background, what do we see when it comes to the winery?
Yeah, you'll pull up and you'll see the original winery structure that was first built here in 2011. It's 2 stories. The tasting room is on both levels. So there's a bar where you first walk in. There's more seating upstairs. My cellar is in the back half of the building on the first floor, so you won't see that unless I invite you back. There's also a really nice patio, picnic grounds, and you can walk over to our brand new pavilion building as well that the current owner, Lisa, installed quickly after purchasing the property in 2019, and it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful timber frame structure that has retractable sides and heaters and a large fireplace. So it's a beautiful 4-season kind of outdoor space for us.
People, when they come to the property, how long do they typically spend? An hour, 2 hours?
It could be an hour, 2 hours. It could be all day. It kind of depends. So you can come in, and we do offer a guided tasting with one of our associates that will kind of talk you through a little bit about the history and guide you through some selected wines that we really wanted to show off what we do here. Or there's always an option to also pick out some flight where we'll give you some detailed notes to read, and you can kind of taste through on your own. You can do glasses, you can do bottles. We have a pretty big expansive lawn as well. So people will come and bring a picnic and stay for the day. You can bring your kids, you can bring your dogs, as long as everybody is well behaved.
When you win an award, where do you get the most satisfaction?
I think the most satisfaction, again, my rosé program is super important to me. So when I enter rosé specific competitions and my wines show well, that's real important to me because I know those judges are just tasting rosé and they know that product well. So that's important to me. On the Virginia side, for our Governor's Cup is always important to get a good nod there. But it like you said, you don't make the wine to win the competition. It's good to get recognized, but winning something and then having my colleagues, my winemaker friends around that, and we sit down and taste wines together, and they can say, "Oh my gosh, Mel, that's good." That almost means more to me than those awards. Yeah, so the 2019 vintage, so both of the wines, the wine that won the Governor's Cup in 2022 was my 2019 Unité Reserve. I also had another red blend that was in the case, which is the top 12. That's the Le Mariage. They both came from the 2019 vintage, which was a gorgeous growing season here for us in Virginia. And I submitted probably like 5 reds, a couple whites, maybe a rosé to that competition. I was like, if something doesn't come home with a gold, I don't know what's going on. Honestly, it's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking higher than a gold. The gold is where you want to be. I wasn't thinking taste. I wasn't thinking cup winner. But I'm like, something here has got to have a gold medal. And I looked to the reds for that just because there's a bias in competitions for red wines, which is, it's hard when you have someone like me that really loves making rosé and white wines. They're harder to show well. You get great comments and low scores. But the reds I knew were good in 2019. So I'm like, something's got to get a gold at least, right? And then I got the phone call. This is the hardest part about winning that competition. It's nice that you know ahead that you won because you have to speak and you can prepare for it. And they want a bunch of notes on the wine to give out to everybody that night. So you need some time to lead up. But they gave me about 6 weeks of telling me and me not being able to tell anybody else, which was a really hard secret to hold. But I did it. I did it very well. I got the phone call from our organization. And she's like, "How you doing today?" I'm like, "Good. My boyfriend and I just came back from a hike." And she's like, "Oh, it's going to be better." I'm like, "Okay." And I knew she was calling about the Governor's Cup. I'm like, "All right, this is my gold medal phone call, right? Here we go." She's like, "Okay, you got 2 that got gold medals." I'm like, "Great." She's like, "And they're both in the case." I'm like, "Okay. And you won." I'm like, "What?" Like, I was certainly not expecting that. It really wasn't. And the hardest thing was she didn't tell me at first what the wine was. I'm like, "Wait a second, what won?" And then she told me it was my 2019 Unité Reserve. And that was super special because that is my estate blend. So I have 7.5 acres that I farm here on the estate. And then I have other partner growers in Virginia that I work pretty closely with for a lot of my other production. But the wine that won was 100% my estate. And that was probably the most validating thing because I think I've felt stronger as a winemaker than a grape grower before. But that was my fruit. Like, that's in my hands. I'm also in the vineyard all season doing the canopy work with my crew. I mean, that fruit is in my hands from the beginning to the end. So it's super validating for anyone that might want to take anything away from that, for me, like, you can't. Like, that was me in that bottle.
Let's wrap up our interview with Melanie from Cana Vineyards as we fill our shopping cart with 5 of their best wines.
All right, let's start with white wine then.
Best 5-minute wine podcast.
We're going to go to Albarino. Right now, it's my 2022 Albarino that we're just about to sell out of, before the 23 comes out. Albarino is something I love. This is grown about 10, 15 minutes away from me with the grower that I've worked with every vintage that I've been here at Cana. So this vintage coming up will be my 10th vintage here with them, and it will be my 10th vintage working with Greenstone Vineyards as well. So that wine is special because it's a special relationship with a grower that immediately was, hey, what do you need? Let's look at this together. And that's the kind of respect that you don't always get right away. As someone new to the industry from, a different world, I'm a little bit younger, not anymore, and a female, right? Like, you don't automatically get that respect sometimes. And I always have from this vineyard. So it's special to me for that reason. The Albarino is just hands down my favorite. In 2015, the first vintage that we made, it wasn't on our lineup. We didn't have the fruit contract in. The grower always sold it to a winery that was next door to him. We lucked out because they planted their own Albarino. 2015 was the first year they picked it. Didn't think they'd have too much of a crop. They did. So they called him and said, well, we actually don't need this. So since we were already picking up Merlot from his vineyard, he said, hey, do you want Albarino? I said, yes. Middle of harvest, don't have a plan for it. Never made Albarino before. Tasted a couple. I liked them. It's a different white wine. I said, this sounds fun. Don't know what yeast I'll use. I think I have a tank I can put it in. That was the first year. Now we're almost on to year 10. And I think together we've learned so much about that grape and that wine production here in this region. It's doing well in Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, kind of the whole mid-Atlantic.
Okay, what's some other favorites?
Should we go to rosé?
Let her rip. That's your favorite.
All right. It is. Let's see if we can keep this short enough. Here's where you get to edit. I have 3 rosés in the portfolio now at Cana Vineyards. So the first one that I've produced since I've been here was a rosé of Merlot. I'd made one in 2015. The fruit wasn't good enough for my Merlot. So I said, all right, I'm not buying your fruit again. 2016, I sourced a different vineyard. I was like, it's still not good enough. 2017, I took Merlot that was already slated for our red program, shifted it to rosé. I said, well, I know where there's good Merlot. It's growing right next to the Albarino down the street. I know we're supposed to make red wine out of it, but I want to make great rosé, and you can't do that without great fruit. So that's how the rosé of Merlot started in 2017. It's always been a mission of mine to push rosé as a serious quality wine. Again, the fruit that goes into my rosé, other winemakers would put into red programs and think it's a waste to make rosé out of it, but I don't. I've been lucky enough that we're building a brand on rosé here at Cana because it's been successful enough. So I'm very fortunate as a winemaker to really push my own passion. And thankfully, we have consumers that appreciate it. So it's allowing me to keep doing it. In 2019, I went to Lisa and I said, can I make 2 rosés this year? She said, okay. So we added the rosé of Cabernet Sauvignon. And then in 2021, I said, I think we should do 3. Can we make 3 rosés this year? And she said, okay. And again, thankfully, it only works if people are gonna want to drink the product and buy it too, but it's been working for us. So I have 3 rosés. They're all single varietal coming from different vineyard sites around the state.
So what is your number 1 seller?
Well, probably right now it's rosé. Like we sell a lot of rosé.
Yeah.
For sure. Sure. We're getting known for Albarino now too, which is great because I really want to own that lane too.
See, there's where that competitive nature comes in. You want to own that lane, get out of here, next door neighbor winery. Yeah.
Well, I want them to be in it with me, but you sometimes it's I want to push to the top because there's a lot of things that I'm like, well, hey, you just planted it. We've been doing it. So my growers had the fruit in the ground since 2006. And I've worked with it for 9 vintages. So it's just time that you can't cheat. Like I had someone taste it and say, it's even better than this winery. I'm like, well, we've been doing this longer. I mean, even if you're a great grower, winemaker, like you get one shot a year to do it. Like you need the time.
As we say goodbye, thank you very much, Melanie. I know you're very busy for taking the time. You've got a lot of energy, continued success. Make sure you give us your contact info.
You're welcome. It's just so fun. Like I'm not always out in the tasting room, but sometimes I'm there, and I really do just love what I do. I'm like, oh, you want to let me talk about it? You're interested? I'm like, all right, let's go. Our website is kinavineyards.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
The best 5-minute wine podcast.
Don't forget my favorite part.
Please like and follow. Oh.